I'm going to keep this brief because I do have work to do actually. Um, but I'll just say this, I was in a room, in a meeting the other night, and it was pointed out, and I don't want to spoil his stream, but I'll just say he pointed out that from his experience on the ground that one of the reasons that you have ICE specifically in Minneapolis is the punishment and kind of infighting of the deep state. Like you have a faction of the deep state that disagrees with the the activities that are going on in Somalia and the separation of Somaliland, and then the motivation by whether it's the United States or our favorite country in the Middle East, bringing over Somalians to the United States and setting up kind of a foothold here, um, and basically that the president is punishing Minnesota and Minneapolis for previous disagreements and sending ICE in there more aggressively. Um, Look, that's a very interesting theory, and I think it's he's making a lot of great points, and I agree with the context of what he's saying. I don't have as much experience on the ground there, and I certainly, but I think what he's saying makes a lot of sense as to why this is such a specific targeted zone. And there's so much fraud in Minneapolis, unfortunately, in Minnesota, because of the connection between what was going on in Somalia and the United States. Um, there's so much fraud that the politicians really they don't want to touch it. But then, for me, when I see what's going on with ICE, and this is not just in Minneapolis, as you see footage of ICE driving around and the chaos that ensues. What I see here is just a breakdown in normal society. So what you'll have is ICE is not they're not obviously going and arresting illegals. Okay, we know that. They are in some places maybe they run into illegals, but what's happening here is ICE is being sent around on foot, and they are then being watched by people who are objecting to ICE. So now you have this back and forth, right? So you have this chaotic like Gestapo like activity, and then at the same time you have violations of rights, but then you also have people take it upon themselves to then violate other people's rights, setting up blockades. You have to confer with a blockade whether you're ICE or not, or whether you're right wing or not. I mean, this is not the United States. You can't do litmus tests for people to be able to drive down a street. I mean, this is literally what it'll look like if you have a civil war by political ideology, where people aren't going to be able to freely move around. But that's really the point. You're creating chaos so that somebody can come in and hammer on that chaos with more chaos and institute a militaristic style police state. And this is gonna expand some of the need for these systems and digital watchdogs that have already been manifested through old systems like total information awareness and things like that. This is how you get these things into action. Okay, just like 9/11, it opened the door for the Patriot Act. It opened the door for more observing, more spying, more violating of habeas corpus, right? So that's what's going on here. Obviously, and Jimmy Dore pointed this out, and I agree with him. Look, if you want to know where illegal immigrants are, if you want to find them, okay, why don't you just go to the businesses where they're working in the kitchens? Why don't you go to the construction sites? Why don't you go to all the wealthy people's houses where they're working on their lawns, they're working on their pools, they're in their house cleaning their bathrooms and doing all that stuff? Why don't you do that? Because they don't want to interfere with that part of the economy. They don't want to interfere with slave labor. That's why. If you want to know the reason, that's why. They do not want to interfere with slave labor. They don't want to interfere with the economy. So what they're doing is they're just harassing regular people. Now, I don't think illegal immigrants should just be grabbed off the street either, to be honest. It's not look, the gangs, The rapists, the people who have committed secondary crimes since coming to the United States, I think they should be removed. They have to be. Okay? You can't create a safe haven for that activity. All right? Because they're hurting innocent people, they're hurting working people, regular people, and it's not right. But most illegal immigrants who come here to work, they're not hurting anybody. I understand they committed a crime. But they're not additionally committing any other crimes. They're literally working, trying to establish a better life. And what about the crimes committed by us on their society? What about the fact that we enable the deterioration of their economic systems in their countries? People aren't just coming here because they're happy. They're coming here because they're miserable in their own homes because we go down and meddle with their economic system. We don't like the social and economic systems that they have, right? We don't, so we go down and we ruin the economy so that people have to go somewhere to eat. They have to go somewhere to live. They have children. The problem in the US, and this is the problem throughout the West, is just like everything else, we socialize the problems and we privatize the benefits. Okay? We socialize the problems and we privatize the benefits. In the financial crisis, when the banks were in trouble, the government bails them out. Okay? If there's any kind of issue, and this is what happens in you see this happened in Mussolini's Italy, this happens in every fascist capitalist country, the the benefits are always privatized, right? And the problems are always socialized. So the individual illegal immigrant who comes to the United States because they are in need of something because we have ruined the economy. Either we have sanctions against their country, or we enable the drug traffickers to dominate their country, or we don't allow their country to trade with countries that we don't like because we don't like their systems. Whatever the case may be, we help to create an environment where people have to flee. And then when they come here, we blame the individual. We blame the mother. We blame the child. We blame the. Why? Why do we do that? It's the same thing with climate change. Okay? It's not just because I know a lot of people are right and left, and think in that terms. We need to get out of that. Climate change, if you think about it, what is the narrative that the World Economic Forum and all these other entities and all these politicians, what do they talk about? What is Al Gore and John Kerry? What do they talk about when they talk about climate change? People drive too much. People have the wrong kind of car. The V8 engine, that's a problem. The cow farting in the middle of Iowa, that's the real issue. So it's always the individuals that are the problem. It's not what we're spraying in the upper atmosphere. It's not the weather manipulation in order to create cloud seeding. Oh, that's not climate change. Literally changing the climate is in the name. Literally. No, no, no. That's not climate change. That's not the issue. A cow farted in Iowa. A random guy has a V8 in his car. That's the problem. The CO2 footprint, okay, of your family. That's the problem. Your grandmother uses that gas stove. That's the problem. That's what we need to go after. You ate a hamburger yesterday, you son of a bitch. That's the problem. It's not, what are we spraying in the atmosphere? It's not all the tankers filled with stuff going across the oceans. It's not the cruise liners. It's not the yachts. It's not the private jets. No, 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 it's not that. It's not all the businesses that use more energy. It's not the smokestacks coming out of. No, 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 no. It's you. Because we have to socialize the problem and privatize all the benefits. And it's the same thing with illegal immigration. They're going to blame these individuals, and then the individuals that have a heart and come out and protest against it, Now, I know there's some grifters. I understand there's some organized grifters. There are people just looking for power. There are bad actors in the power structure that are using people to go out and have fake outrage. But there are people who feel terrible about what they see. And there are people that understand that we just can't have a police force roaming around. You know, they're not even really cops, roaming around, pulling people over, pointing guns. We can't have that. You can't have that. They don't do that in China. They don't do that. They didn't. I mean, this is insane. They keep referencing the Gestapo. The Gestapo. I'm not sure that they behaved like this. I'm not 100%. This might be a little worse than the Gestapo because this is so random. It's not even targeted. It's just random. So then they blame those people, and then we're blaming the people that work for ICE. We're blaming the guys on the ground. You think these guys are trained? You think they know what they're doing? Now, some of them are from there. Some of them are IDF soldiers. Some of them are professionals. A lot of these guys are not trained. They are not professionals. They're not police officers. They're not. They are not people who have gone through scrutiny. I mean, some of them have some law enforcement work, but we're not talking about people that went through 10 years or even a 6 month boot camp where they learned like who to pull a gun on, who not to, and all that. I mean, we're not. This is like a ragtag operation, and you can tell it is. You can tell just by the way they're interacting. You had an ICE officer tell somebody 2 days ago that they were driving a car that wasn't registered in their name, and that was illegal, and that's why they got that was okay for them to be potentially arrested. That's not true. That's not true. Have you ever driven your father's car? Have you ever driven your mother's car? Have you ever lent your car to your brother or your sister? I mean, that's just total nonsense. You people drive cars that are not registered in their name all the time. Now, does a car need to have a registration? Yes. There's a law for that. It's probably nonsense, but yes. But you can drive a car not registered in your name. Have you ever heard of rentals? When you rent a car, that car's not registered in your name. It's registered in the business's name. And this guy is pulling people over. He said he has a gun. He's threatening people, and he doesn't even know the law. He doesn't know the basics. And by the way, he's not a traffic cop. But that's what I mean. They want regular people with guns harassing regular people on the street who are sticking up for regular people from another country. Do you notice the pattern here? Everybody in this scenario is just working people. This is a class issue. Do you think the rich people, do you think, and I'm not just saying rich, I should say, do you think the people that have control over our society, do you think they're getting pulled over by ICE? No. Do you think they have illegals working for them? Fuck yeah, they do. This is, again, you're privatizing the benefits and you're publicizing and socializing the problems. So we got to wake up to this. We have to wake up to this. Should we stand up and say we don't want to remove people that are working and having committed a second crime? Yes. We have to come to a consensus. If you've committed a second crime since you came here illegally, you're gone. We have to agree to that, folks. But if you have come here having committed another crime, we have to work out a way for those people to have a safe existence here. And we have to ask ourselves, why did they come here in the first place? Because the people that own our economy are screwing around in those countries, just like you just saw in Venezuela, just like you just saw in Syria last year, just like you've seen in Iraq for 20 years or 40 years, really, just like you've seen in Iran, just like you've seen all over the world, in Sudan, in Somalia, in Nigeria. You have to ask that question. Why? What is going on in these countries that people are running away? Ask yourself, would you get up and leave your house tomorrow? Why? Why would you leave this country? Because the benefits of bad action are privatized and the problems in this world are socialized. And it's time we flip that around. Thank you.